Welcome back to Sunday Nation. Recently, Emmy Award-winning Detroit television producer Tony Mottley was in the city of Birmingham, Alabama. He writes in the Pulse Institute, "Unwinding the secrets of the Jim Crow American South unleashes nightmares and trauma on those that relive the darkness of America's racist past." Several members of Birmingham, Alabama's Westfield High School class of 1964 shared their memories. We soon found out why Birmingham and the moniker Birmingham. Tony Mottley, thank you so much for being here.
that sounds pretty good. I'm like, I wrote that.
Wow.
I
mean, you did. And I read the story. It is very fascinating. You documenting going down south and documenting an important part of American history. Let's begin with what interests you to go and do that.
People from that class reached out to me and said, we have an opportunity to have our history preserved in the Birmingham Civil Rights Institute, which is pretty profound if you visit it. Yeah. But they weren't sure what to do. And I sat on it for a while, and then I suffered an illness, and I come back to it and revisit it. And they said, well, what can we do? And I said, well, what's interesting about this is your experiences. Not that, you know, this high school, everybody went to high school, but you all lived through, you know, the March on Washington was when they first started back in their senior year, August of '63. The rebellions and protests in Birmingham. The 4 little girls were murdered.
The 16th Street Baptist Church, which is next to the Civil Rights Institute. Right.
The President Kennedy being assassinated. The increase in troops in Vietnam. All of these things are happening. And this is still a time where a black man has to not look a white man in the eye, drink at a white, not drink at a white water fountain, to order food at the front and go around to the back to receive your food. I mean, this is Jim Crow in full effect. So it's a terrible time. And I think people learn to, what I said, I think discussing with you or someone else, normalize racism. And because they got to survive. So you can look at it from a 21st century perspective and say, oh man, I wouldn't have taken that, or I would have done this, I would have done that. But the truth is, you would have gone along with the program, or we'd be talking about you in the past tense. And that's the unfortunate reality.
Right. But and I'm looking at the story you wrote. It's the thing that hits me though, and it keeps coming back, and that is this fading generation, who were witnesses to history, who saw so much. You know, some have a direct lineage to slavery. Their grandparents were slaves, and so forth. And have witnessed this entire era of the civil rights movement, and a lot of them, Tony, have passed on to the next life, as we put it.
There were,
you know, without their stories being told.
300 members of this class, and there's less than half are still alive. At least most of them are 74, 75 years old now. And you don't wish ill will on anyone, but you know, life is short. And so when they go away, their stories go away. And I tell you what's really profound about this for all of us to realize is that we are all witnesses to history. And we may even all witness it together. But because of where we sit in life, what we've experienced in life, we all see it differently. So even though you might ask a dozen people the same set of questions, basically, the answers you get are totally different. Totally different. And it makes for a very compelling story. But like you said, the fact that these people, when they go away, when they pass away, those stories will die with them. And so what I said about the Civil Rights Institute, which is marvelous, there aren't many first-person accounts of people that lived through it. We know the Dr. Kings and the larger, you know, celebrity-type people.
But these were also Dr. King talked about. I mean, these are the unnamed heroes.
And these are regular people. Regular people who, you know, for us as blacks right now, we don't know. We heard about the Klan, we've seen the Klan, but these are folks that one woman talks about her grandma telling her to stay quiet and turn the lights out. And her grandmother sat in the front room with her in her rocking chair with a gun on her lap hidden under a blanket. because the Klan was riding through town that night, and they didn't know what they were going to do.
Linda Turner, yeah.
That's right. Yeah. And you know, that's a reality for them.
Yeah.
I mean, so you ask somebody, do you have any experiences with the Klan? And they tell you a story like that. You're like, my God. Yeah. Who's done that?
Yeah, because, you know, because the Klan has had so much impact, we sometimes think about it as if it was something like 3 centuries ago.
No.
It was just less than half a century.
And the thing about it is, Bankole, it's evolved.
Yeah.
So they may not always wear sheets now; they wear suits now.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I mean, what was January 6th?
Yeah.
That was basically, essentially a Klan rally. Some people that just felt like America was going the wrong way and decided to take matters into their own hands.
So with these individuals that you've interviewed, I'm looking at their names here. We have Linda Turner, we have Samuel Morrow, Raymond Crenshaw, we have Levi Satterfield. And what was it like interviewing them? How did they feel? What was their response?
They were nervous. Some of them were eager. But I think they were honored, too, that someone wanted to hear their stories. Yeah. Mr. Satterfield, for example. Right. He's 91 years old. So you would never know, speaking with him.
He's witnessed 3 generations.
And that he was as old as he was. Right. You know, he was a little hard of hearing, but other than that, his mind was sharp.
Well, at 91 years old, he is literally a walking museum.
Yes. And I tell you, he came to Westfield in 1953, and the leader of the school district met him, interviewed him, asked him about some tools used in physics, micrometers, calipers, whatever. Yeah. And he was able to demonstrate expertise on those tools. And the guy, without even giving him an application or test, said, "You're hired." Wow. And they took him downtown, and he's hired. Right. But, you know, he returned to Northwestern eventually to get a master's in physics. So here's a black man with a master's in physics in the 1950s. But guess what? He got nowhere to go. Yeah. But teach high school, which is great. Yeah. Those people benefited from their experience. Right. We wish we had black men with masters in physics teaching in our schools right now. Yeah. And so most of those people that were forced to by segregation and Jim Crow to go nowhere else but teach high school, now they work in private practice, private industry, and they don't have, young people aren't exposed to them anymore. But yeah, a brilliant person. But what I found is they had hand-me-down books, hand-me-down desks. Yeah. That building, Westfield, was a wooden building, okay, built in 1934. But you know what? They had people that loved them and cared about those kids, put God first, and cared about the kids. Mr. Satterfield told me, there is no failure in my classroom, is what he told his students. You know, everybody can get an A or B, and if you can't, I know you can earn a C. And he didn't accept failure. Yeah. And it shows you, you know, so we learn from our elders. It shows you what a positive attitude and a determination to uplift people and work with students can do. Because these students became doctors. Yeah. You know, they accomplished other things besides just graduating from high school. Right. And what's really great about it is Mr. Satterfield and the other staff members, they were preparing these students for jobs they may not ever be able to get in 1950 or 63. Yeah. Yeah. Because segregation was real. I mean, people were learning to be social workers and teachers because there weren't any careers for them to go to. In the story, you also just you laid out just the threats from the Klan and you know all of the challenges that they face. I mean, the heat of Jim Crow and all of that. But I want to talk about just the dimension to this story also. I think. You know, underscores the importance of oral history. I mean, this was a demonstration of oral history at its finest because hearing, like you said, from the individual themselves, this is not a secondary source. I mean, in intellectual research, we call it a primary source, right? And that's important. Yeah, and it primary source holds up in any debate, in any argument, in any court is a primary source. And I'll tell you what's important for all of us who tell these stories is that we know something about Jim Crow, we know something about the Klan, but what happens is when you sit these people down and talk to them, they remember things because of the setting and that we're questioning them that they probably have forgotten about.
Right.
And so, I mean, I found people breaking down, crying, sharing, and reliving their trauma, reliving their past.
It's like you're taking them on a historical, emotional excursion.
And plus, when you're a little kid and the Klan is coming, you got to hide. You remember that, but you live through it. You're not really thinking about it.
Right.
So now we're asking them, what was that like? And they're like, oh my God, I did that and I did that. Like, we had prom in the daytime. I'm sorry, what? We had prom in the daytime. Yeah, I was disappointed. This lady said I couldn't wear my nice dress. You know, it just wasn't the same. But because there were so many bombings, so many lynchings in Birmingham, they were afraid to be out at night. I mean, can you imagine?
So, what is the end game here? What do they want to see with these stories being shared?
They want to be heard.
Yeah.
They want to, and they should be heard.
Yeah.
And I think it's important. You know, you say, well, that's in the past. You know what? No.
Right.
We need as much context. And when I tell you what I thought about is that your history, my history, and everyone that hears, reads, or watches this, it's like the DNA of our history. Because your story is different than mine.
Right.
We have,
but it's all part of the same.
In a Venn diagram, it overlaps.
Yeah.
A lot.
Yeah.
But the places where it does it, it's different.
Yeah.
And then your experiences are different.
Right.
You know?
So Birmingham has, you know, Alabama was one of the capitals of Jim Crow, and it still remains.
Oh, it is.
It is still seen as this monument to a period in time that was, you know, the worst of time for black folk. I'm thinking, did you during your visit, did you observe any kind of an interest in retelling these stories of these black folk, you know, who witnessed an important period, important chapter in American history, which cannot be erased, despite what Governor DeSantis wants to do?
Well, I think when you visit the museum, you see a diverse group of people visiting. And I think it's more or less a pilgrimage.
Right.
If people come to Birmingham, maybe a large majority of them come to visit those civil rights places around there. And then you got to remember too, Birmingham, why did King go to Alabama? Why did he go to Birmingham? It was the worst place. He wanted to say, listen, if we can make a difference in Alabama.
If we can crack Alabama, we can
break the back of Jim Crow.
Right.
And so that's how bad of a place it was.
Yeah.
And so, I think it's important because you said Governor DeSantis wants to erase it. And they want to erase it from books. I think the lack of outrage for people not to realize that you take history out of history books, and America is built on myths and lies. We know that. You know, Columbus didn't sail the ocean blue and discover America. And the truth is, black folks were already here when he got here. But that's what we are. And now you want to just blatantly tear black history out of books, stop people from teaching black history. You want to ban the word racism. This is a bad time. These are really, as bad as it was in '63 and '64 in Birmingham, in some ways intellectually, it's really bad in 2023 in America.
So what is the challenge, though, for this generation, for people who are watching and listening, in terms of being able to keep that history not only sacrosanct, but ensure that there's the substance of a Westfield High School being told, you know, in the lives of these, you know, individuals who have lived that experience, that continues? I
think we have to learn to be vigilant about history and to be more vigilant. I think in a sense we've let our guard down. And you know, it's kind of almost a cliche to say, look at how Jewish people, but it's true though. You have to put your arms around this history and protected. And those stories need to be retold. And listen, Black History Month should be a how-to for the rest of the year. You can't put Black history in a closet and just bring it out in February.
Dust it off. Yeah.
You know, no, and it can't just be, okay, now let's not forget Dr. King, let's not forget Medgar Evers, let's not forget Malcolm X.
Du Bois, Souls of Black
Because
folk,
it's more than that. It's bigger than that.
Yes, yes. I mean, I think these interviewees you talk to, they themselves are Black history in real time.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. And we can't forget them because they share a common experience that we all have right now.
That's right.
Because we're living through it in our own time.
That's right.
And so most of us are not going to rise to the level of a quote-unquote civil rights leader. We're not going to be Dr. King.
Right.
But we live in it every day.
No question.
We driving while Black.
That is true. That is very true. I think we saw that in Memphis. What happened with Tyrone Nichols.
Yeah. And that's every day.
Yeah.
And the fact that Black folk have learned to inflict it on Black folk.
Right.
But they, they're carrying out what they've been taught.
Yeah. This was a well-executed project. Tony Mottley, Emmy Award-winning television producer. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for bringing it to everyone else.
Yes, and I want to do this. We want to salute Linda Turner, Samuel Morrow, Raymond Crenshaw, and Levi Satterfield, and thank you for being a witness to history and how foundational your experiences have been to our modern era. We'll be right back with more on Sunday Nation.